Lady Chatterley's lover with me, Morel Bernard. So, why couldn't a girl be queenly and give the gift of herself? Yes. So, they had given the gift of themselves, each to the youth with whom she had the most subtle and intimate arguments. The arguments, the discussions were the great thing. The love-making and connection were only a sort of primitive reversion and a bit of an anticlimax. One was less in love with the boy afterwards and a little inclined to hate him, as if he had trespassed on one's privacy and inner freedom. For of course, being a girl, one's whole dignity and meaning in life consisted in the achievement of an absolute, a perfect, a pure, and noble freedom. What else did a girl's life mean? To shake off the old and sordid connections and subjections. And however one might sentimentalize it, this sex business was one of the most ancient, sordid connections and subjections. Poets who glorified it were mostly men. Women had always known that there was something better, something higher, and now they knew it more definitely than ever. The beautiful, pure freedom of a woman was infinitely more wonderful than any sexual love. The only unfortunate thing was that men lagged so far behind women in the matter. They insisted on the sex thing like dogs, and a woman had to yield. A man was like a child with his appetites. A woman had to yield him what he wanted, or like a child he would probably turn nasty and flounce away and spoil what was a very pleasant connection. But a woman could yield to a man without yielding her inner free self. But the poets and talkers about sex did not seem to have taken sufficiently into account. A woman could take a man without really giving herself away. Certainly, she could take him without giving herself into his power. Rather, she could use his sex thing to have power over him. For she only had to hold herself back in sexual intercourse and let him finish and expend himself without herself coming to the crisis. And then she could prolong the connection and achieve her orgasm at a crisis while he was merely her tool. Both sisters had had their love experience by the time the war came, and they were hurried home. Neither was ever in love with a young man unless he and she were verbally very near. That is, unless they were profoundly interested, talking to one another. The amazing, the profound, the unbelievable thrill there was in passionately talking to some really clever young man by the hour, resuming day after day for months. This they had never realized till it happened. The paradisal promise, "Thou shalt have men to talk to," had never been uttered. It was fulfilled before they knew what a promise it was. And if after the roused intimacy of these vivid and soul-enlightened discussions, the sex thing became more or less inevitable, then let it. It marked the end of a chapter. It had a thrill of its own too, a queer, vibrating thrill inside the body, a final spasm of self-assertion, like the last word, exciting, and very like the row of asterisks that can be put to show the end of a paragraph and a break in the theme. When the girls came home for the summer holidays of 1913, when Hilda was 20 and Connie 18, their father could see plainly that they had had the love experience. L'amour va point, as somebody puts it. But he was a man of experience himself and let life take its course. As for the mother, a nervous invalid in the last few months of her life, she wanted her girls to be free and to fulfill themselves. She herself had never been able to be altogether herself. It had been denied her. Heavens know why, for she was a woman who had her own income and her own way. She blamed her husband, but as a matter of fact, it was some old impression of authority on her own mind or soul that she could not get rid of. It had nothing to do with Sir Malcolm, who left his nervously hostile, high-spirited wife to rule her own roost while he went his own way. So the girls were free and went back to Dresden and their music and the university and the young men. They loved their respective young men, and their respective young men loved them with all the passion of mental attraction. All the wonderful things the young men thought and expressed and wrote, they thought and expressed and wrote for the young women. Connie's young man was musical, Hilda's was technical, but they simply lived for their young women. In their minds, in their mental excitements, that is. Somewhere else they were a little rebuffed, though they did not know it. It was obvious in them, too, that love had gone through them, that is, the physical experience. It is curious what a subtle but unmistakable transmutation it makes, both in the body of men and women. The woman more blooming, more subtly rounded, her young angularities softened and her expression either anxious or triumphant. The man much quieter, more inward. The very shapes of his shoulders and his buttocks less assertive, more hesitant. In the actual sex thrill within the body, the sisters nearly succumbed to the strange male power. But quickly they recovered themselves, took the sex thrill as a sensation and remained free. Whereas the men, in gratitude to the woman for the sex experience, let their souls go out to her, and afterwards looked rather as if they had lost a shilling and found sixpence. Connie's man could be a bit sulky, and Hilda's a bit jeery. But that is how men are, ungrateful and never satisfied. When you don't have them, they hate you because you won't, and when you do have them, they hate you again for some other reason, or for no reason at all, except that they are discontented children and can't be satisfied whatever they get. Let a woman do what she may. So, you should listen, you should watch the next video to know what happens next in Connie's life, Lady Chatterley's lover. Watch the next video, and that will be video 3. For now, bye-bye.